Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
I was born in Switzerland, and my parents came out here when I was 3 and we went and we moved to Kaikoai. There wasn't any particular religion at all, which was different to the rest of the community, which was actually going to church, especially amongst the Maori groups and the white community. And as a child, I'd get reminded at school. That is when I could understand them, because I basically spoke French as my first language. Simply, that you would be going to hell if you didn't even go to church. I had probably very simple understandings of the Christian teachings, and when I was, I think I was probably about 6 or 7 when I could actually grasp English, my mum encouraged me to go to Sunday school to sort of, I guess maybe to fit in, and she had a bit more of a traditional Christian upbringing. Her parents were Swiss Protestants or Calvinists, because she was from Geneva. When I actually went to Sunday school, I struggled with what they were teaching. Not the 10 Commandments, but the aspect of Jesus being the Son of God. Firstly, I couldn't understand and couldn't accept as a child how mankind that was created by God, and the entire universe was created by God, this other being, could have a part thereof being his son, killed by mankind. I mean, it was an oxymoron, I mean, really. And so I basically could accept that Jesus was a prophet and all his teachings, but I couldn't accept the actual doctrine that he died on the cross. And the other issues that they bring up is that you can sin as much as you like because you've been forgiven, yet at the same time they want you to follow the 10 Commandments and behave. So these real contrasts. If it can't enter your heart, you can't really practice it to the full extent. And I think that's where I would have said nominally I was a Christian, believing in what Jesus said, but I tell my mum I can't accept what they're telling me, and so I think she just pulled me out. I think I became a bit of a troublemaker. I remember being kicked out of the Sunday class and told, because I would question. I mean, and that's been my nature all the way. I'd always question, and then then you get removed, and then so you get the dunce hat, and that's the end of the issue. I had some core beliefs. I mean, and that probably comes from the Christian teachings that were passed on to me. I mean, I always believed there was a creator. There had to be something to create all this and this at the start. I struggled with evolution as a concept. I believed that there was a line of prophets and that Jesus was one of those major prophets or messengers. I believed in the 10 Commandments because I saw that was crystal clear, the basic law, that if everyone actually applied that in their lives, it would mitigate a lot of the problems in society. And Jesus' golden rule was really one that I sort of adhered to, which was, the do unto others what you want others to do to yourself. So I carried them with me, and I had a lot of interactions as I grew up, actually more as an adult. I didn't really go further than that as a child up until my adolescence and adulthood. I left it on the side. I was approached by many religious groups, but they all seemed to have the same, especially they were Christians. Being in New Zealand was a Christian land at that time. There was very few foreigners up until 1980 when I left. And so there was not a spectrum of religions here. I migrated to Perth and lived in Western Australia for a long time. And when I had children, I raised my kids on the basis that the golden rule motto, and that there was a creator. And simply left it at that. After my first marriage broke up, I went travelling overseas, in search of my own truths of the world. I arrived in India, where you saw the real the wide range of different faiths. I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, I read many other books on what is Buddhism, what is Hinduism, read more about Judaism, realised that it's a bit of a closed shop there. It's hard, you can become one, unless you, like you're Madonna or someone who brings a lot of cred for their faith, you're really on the outside. I mean, and Christianity, I struggled again with the Son of God, and the only Christians that I met and had discussions with, interestingly, with those Jehovah's Witnesses that have that Unitarian view, although they do label Jesus the Son of God. I used to have so I'd have a lot of people coming to my door, the Mormons and all the groups, and we'd sit down and they would just enjoy talking with me, and they'd say, why can't you come into this faith, brother? And I'd say, because I just don't feel I accept the majority, but these major points, I can't accept this, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite on your side, because knowing me, I'm going to cause waves. And I've already been booted out of Sunday school at 6, so it's like, The only interaction I had with Islam was when I was in Jaipur in '93, and there was a big festival in the street. I was travelling there with a young English girl, and I can remember this really clearly. On the street, we were up on the first floor, there was just all males on the street level and all the females on the first floor. I remarked to her, look, how about this for a situation? I think, and her being the strong-willed Western woman, decided, right, I want to go down and see what goes on. So I said, listen, there could be a real problem here. But I did remember that there was around the corner there was a museum, Indian museum, that had an armed Indian soldier. So I thought, at worst, I'll just run. And in fact, that's actually what happened. We got down there, and these Muslims weren't happy, because I thought she was appropriately dressed, but she just had long sleeves. But I mean, the rest of it was, figure hugging, and simply they started to challenge and get very upset, and they were circling us, and to the point where I thought, man, if we don't break and run, we're going to be encircled, and we're not going to be able to get out. So I just grabbed her while she's thinking all this attention is fabulous. I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to be in trouble here in a second. So we actually, literally, I pulled her and ran, and we ran towards the soldier. And then that's when we ran into the complex, and the soldier was, holding back all these people who had obviously been offended. And I thought, well, this is really uncool. I've done nothing here. I've not been hostile. But I think the reaction was to her being there, not appropriately dressed, and I'm really, as I understand now, I'm her mahram, and it's me who really is copying the flak. So I sort of thought, well, these Muslims are uncool. The major event that really shook me was 9/11. When I was a child, I was very left-wing. I went to Rangitoto College where they taught Russian. I actually learned Russian for 4 years because I thought they will eventually dominate. I mean, the military technology, if you read really what the Soviets had compared to the Americans, it looked like there was going to be an American defeat. So I basically, I'd always viewed America as an adversary in my way of thinking. Once September 11 occurred, I was actually doing my graduate law degree at the time. So I thought, as a lawyer, you always have to look at both sides of the argument. You can't just be one-eyed. So I thought, well, I know the Bush view. I mean, that's pretty clear. I know where he's taken it. But I had no idea about the Islamic view. So I thought, well, this is time to actually start researching. In my off time, I sort of scanned the net to have a look. Coincidentally, I had a Muslim friend who, he was a Singaporean gentleman. Basically, I started reading and looking on the web and finding out information. The information that I gleaned showed that there was, well, firstly, they believed in God, the one God, and they made it very clear, Allah, the God. They believed in all the lines of prophets from the Bibles. They believed in essentially that the Bible, or the people, the words in the Bible, the people of the book, are attributed back to the prophets, although updated by or innovated by the hand of man. The Ten Commandments, the heaven and hell, being accountable for what you do. So it was a natural fit. So I thought, well, this needs more research. But unfortunately, I just didn't have the time to research. In that uni break that year, my son, who was 13 at the time, who had been living with his mother, decided to come and live with me. I had been a very bad role model. I thought, right, I need to clean myself up, because I'd been taking a lot of drugs and alcohol and, you know, going from one woman to the other. So I thought, no, this all needs to stop, because I can't expect my 13-year-old son to not do that when I'm doing it. So I basically stopped everything. And it was December the 11th, it was the last time I took some, you know, that was a bit of a marker for me, 3 months after that day. When that first semester of 2002 finished, I asked my Muslim friend, I said, listen bro, where can I get some books to read about this? Something I can actually, more than just reading stuff on the net. Because somehow, I mean, you know, being a law student, you like to have those hard copy books. He told me go to Meylan Markaz, which was a mosque, and there was a little room there. I walked in, I only had like $60 on me. I thought, there's quite a few good books here. I ran back up to the ATM, got some more, and bought a bunch of books. And the first book that I actually read was called The Later Prophets, and it was I think it was from Prophet Dawood or Sulaiman all the way through to Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. In the last chapter of the book was the verses of the Qur'an, particularly dealing and calling to the people of the book, and then the Jews and the Christians. And in there it sort of corrects Allah corrects the innovations and the variations that the hand of man have put into the Bible in the Qur'an. This was the first time I read verses of the Qur'an, really, like whole passages. I'd probably just get little excerpts, but this was all the way through, and I thought, well, I have a dilemma now. I believe this, and what am I going to do about it? Am I going to be a hypocrite and just say, right, I'm just going to put this down and forget about it, or am I actually going to practice this? So I rang my Muslim friend. I said, listen, brother, what do I do now? I want to talk to someone who's got some knowledge. And he then suggested, why don't you go to the Imam of Rivervale Mosque. He's a very good man, and sit down and have a chat. So he made a time for me a couple of days later, and I just couldn't wait to go there. I was like, I need to do something. You know, I could feel that I'd finally got onto the truth here, and I just didn't want to let it go. And so I went down. I mean, I had long hair down to my backside. I had earrings. I was quite a look actually, and I went down to the mosque, and he said, well, what do you want to do, brother? I said, well, what do I do? He says, well, can't you just give shahada? I didn't even know what shahada, all I knew was those passages out of the Qur'an, really. And he didn't understand it. He said, well, this is what you repeat, you know, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He explained it in English, and I went, well, that's fine. I mean, I accept these things. So, and Asr prayer was coming up, so I sat down. There was a few other brothers in the mosque waiting for Asr to come around, and he said, you'll have to take your earring out. So I took that earring out, and to this day, I don't know where that earring is. It is gone. And it was, I think I put it somewhere, and alhamdulillah anyway. And then I got down and I prayed. And I didn't know, I was sort of looking at the corner of my eye to see what I had no idea. And then from that day on, I just, you know, was a changed person. I felt liberated. I felt peace. I'm like a child, and I analogize it, you know, when you're a child, you just feel real comfortable with your environment. I mean, if you've got a peaceful household, that is, you're comfortable in your environment, you feel like you fit in, you know you're the child, there's your parents. The same sort of concept. I know where I'm going, I know what's expected of me, I know my rights and my obligations, I know I'm going to be held accountable, and that was the way forward. I just simply broke with the past and then started going around telling everybody, this is what I am. First thing, and you're right, I did get a haircut. I went home and I got my daughter to shave my head, and I still have my hair for some reason. I need to probably get rid of that, but yes, I went back and shaved my head. The most powerful thing, first off, was establishing a connection. You know, religion means, you know, the root word is connection back in Latin. So it's establishing that connection, praying to somebody, and not just idealizing it, getting up and actually going through the motions and realizing you're actually calling out to somebody. And that was something that I'd never had before. I sort of theorized it, I thought about it, but I never, you know, until you actually started praying, that was the major thing. Turning away from looking at women, lowering your gaze, because in the West, and probably it's starting to spread around the world, is the undressing of all our women, holding back from profanity and swearing, stopping the drinking and the easy way out, you know, having your spliff or your pills or whatever drug you need, or whatever, you know, distraction you need from realizing you're not happy. Getting up early in the morning. I mean, I had a routine of, you know, partying all night and getting up in the afternoon, and I mean a lot of this had changed when my son came to live with me, but I mean, you know, having some discipline, having a map and knowing what I had to do, having a real compass, you know, now I must do these things. This is the right way. Don't worry about that. Having the key, essentially, and you know, and actually using it, rather than just having it and putting it in your pocket and just, I've got the key, you know. I went on Hajj 6 months after becoming a Muslim, and that was a profound experience. Seeing all these people gathered together, all the brothers in Ihram, no matter what background you were, where you came from, you're all the same. Very interesting as a revert, because it's one of the only places, I mean, as a white revert, one of the first places that you're totally a minority. I mean, here you're coming from this apparently great civilization, and you're just on the margins there. It was very enriching, and, you know, increased my iman. And I never forget coming back from Hajj. I was floating, and then I had to come back and do jurisprudence in law, which is very dry. It was a shock for most people who'd seen me live the life of Riley, then do this big U-turn. I mean, they would have considered it a U-turn. It was the turn onto the right path for me, onto the straight path. And simply that was the end of it. They finally saw me stick with something, firstly. Something that was clean. I mean, you know, I'd stuck to what was unclean for a long time. My father, he was very, I would say, a-religious. He doesn't really follow anything. He was intrigued more than anything. My mum, she was really a big astrologer. She did her own research. She was quite intrigued. She was happy for me that I'd actually cleaned my life up. She always thought that I should clean my life up. Overall, I think they were impressed. They learned something about it, but I think it's just too tough for them. And inshallah, Allah give them hidayah. I mean, you know, maybe at some time, you know, Allah can do anything. But right now, they're following their own path. My friends, they were, I mean, a lot of them were just reeling. They couldn't believe it. The girl that I was going out with at the time thought I was just using it as an excuse to break up with her. A lot of my bros for many years, they couldn't understand how I could just stop taking drugs, and, you know, because I guess I was probably one of the big instigators of it, to turn around and stop it. And overnight, they struggle with that. They just thought it may be a phase. I don't know. I didn't lose contact with them. Some of the friends from way back, they've sort of been watching. Their core beliefs are very similar, but again, because Islam is a very, it has to enter your heart in order to practice. And that's the struggle for people, is that, you know, if you like your booze, if you like your cigarettes, if you like, you know, looking at women, if you like these it becomes a real challenge. And unless you enters you fully, and, you know, with Allah's hidayah, you just keep struggling. Allah saved my life. He's given me a chance. You know, I need to practice. You know, simply becoming a Muslim is no guarantee to anything. You know, finding Islam is one thing, practicing it is another thing. And it's a real discipline, and that's the conundrum for most people. Is, you know, I can understand it, I feel it, but man, this is hard. This is real hard, and, you know, and it's a challenge, and you have to have, it has to enter your heart, because then you have the fear. And then you realise, or the love, it's whichever, I mean, two sides of the same coin there. So, look at the books or the websites, the sources, because we are all struggling. I mean, you and I, we struggle. You know, our iman, and it's clear in, you know, Qur'an, it still talks about our levels of faith going up and down and up and down. And you know, sometimes we feel like we're just a flag in the wind being flapped around this way and then being flapped around the other way. And, you know, but, you know, and it takes effort and commitment and fear. You know, you have to have taqwa. You have to actually realize we are all going in that hole, and you're going to be held accountable, whether you like it or you don't like it. It offers justice for all people. I mean, people are searching for justice today, and the only place they'll find it is actually in Islam. And it's sometimes it could be called hard justice, and that's why they look at possibly the callings, you know, by God on how we're supposed to behave. But you know, if people are caught stealing, and not just apples and oranges, but, you know, taking other people's money, you know, if they knew they were going to lose their hand, they'd think very much twice about what they're doing. Secondly, it offers you a roadmap on how to live. I mean, people just don't know. They just, you know, they try a bit of that, they try a bit of this, because you know, you don't try little bits and pieces all over the place unless you know where you're going. But here it's clear. You know where your destination is. You know how to behave. You're taught a set of values, and they're not antithetical to what New Zealand has as its core values, which is, you know, if you follow the 10 Commandments, you know, you'll live a very peaceful life, and that's in essence. And simply the peace that you'll have in your heart, because you know you've got justice, because you know where you're going, you know how to behave. You can't trade peace. You can't buy peace. It's one of those commodities that are just not for sale. You know, you either have it or you don't. So, I mean, I see Islam bringing those three issues into your life and permanently changing your life. I grew up in New Zealand. I've done a lot of travelling. I did all my education here up to high school. So, I mean, I definitely feel like a Kiwi. I've always been treated as a Kiwi, as an Aussie in Australia anyway. I mean, they always, you know, the sheep jokes never end. New Zealand is a great land to be a Muslim. It allows you to practice freely, express yourself, stand up for justice, stand up for your rights. The core Kiwi values do line up with the core Islamic values, because they come from the same source. I mean, you know, the rights to freedom of worship in New Zealand are pretty clear, and that's allowed, I mean, not just Christians but every group. So I don't see any conflict. I see actually a harmony and peacefulness. And I think, you know, as New Zealanders start to understand what Islam actually means, it will start to grow, and it is growing, because people are starting to recognise the truth for what it is. It's totally changed my life. My life before was just, and I analogize it, I was eating sweet food, yum, it's tasty, and eating it, and it's very pleasant, it tastes good, but you're never full. You never get full. You always, and it doesn't end. Now, I think with Islam, I clearly feel full and content. And so when I eat, and then I'm full and I can stop and enjoy. Whereas if you're always eating, the consequences are you want to eat more and sweeter and bigger and grander, and so, you know, it's, I guess the end is peace, and that's what Islam is about. It's about peace, having peace within your heart, peace within yourself, and then when you're peaceful, you're in love, mate. You love it all, and so and there's no hate, you know. There's not the opposite, because what if you've got tranquility and peace, then nothing can disturb you. It's like, you know, the waves can lap over you. You know where you're going, and you just accept that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.